thank you very much for coming in such numbers. Very briefly, my name's Owen Bennett-Jones with BBC World Service, and in Pakistan when General Musharraf was running the country, and I'll just be chairing this session. And first of all, can I just say, if everyone could switch off their phones? Has that been done? At the very least on silent. That would be great. And just just to give you an idea of how it's going to work, we're going to have a talk from the General for half an hour or so, and then he's agreed to take questions for another half hour. And very briefly, to introduce him, he was Chief Executive and President of Pakistan from 1999 to 2008. So he ran Pakistan actually for virtually a decade, almost a sixth of the country's entire history. And you'll all be familiar with the issues. I think the best thing, General, is if you start talking for half an hour, and then we'll ask you to sit down and take some questions. So, General Musharraf.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure for me, and may I say, even a unique privilege, to be speaking to such an august gathering, and also at an institute which enjoys a very prestigious reputation. Thank you very much for being here and for giving me this opportunity to interact with you. I'm going to speak to you on the challenges confronting Pakistan. Well, if I was to encapsulate in the briefest manner the present situation in Pakistan, I would like to say that it's the most happening place in the world where there is never a dull moment. With this, ladies and gentlemen, may I add after this that till 1989, the world's geostrategic focus was Eurocentric because of the Cold War, because of East-West confrontation, NATO Warsaw Pact, Berlin Wall, reunification of Germany, etc. But after 1989, or rather after 9/11, 2001, the geostrategic focus shifted to South Asia and West Asia, for the reasons that you all know, because that is the happening place now. Therefore, I would like to deduce that while in 1989, the area of South Asia could be abandoned because of the geostrategic focus being Eurocentric, now, when everything is happening in that area, it is not possible to abandon the place. And therefore, I would like to say that quitting or leaving the place is not an option. I'll get into the details a little later, because I think it will spell international and regional disaster, and I'll come to that later also. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I'm going to speak for half an hour, and I'm going to cover basically terrorism and extremism, because that is the major challenge. And then I would like to very briefly get involved in Indo-Pakistan, India-Pakistan relations, and also Pakistan-Afghanistan relations, very briefly. Having said that, without much ado, let me get on to terrorism and extremism. And in this, I would like to, in order to understand the genesis, may I put it like this, one, it is very important that we highlight some key events that took place after 1979. Firstly, between 1979 and 89, two very important happenings took place. Number one, that in 1979, when the Soviets came into Afghanistan, they deposed the king. And with that, an arrangement called Misake Milli in Afghanistan. It translates into a national covenant, a national arrangement, under which Afghanistan existed for centuries as a unified country, as an integrated country. That was that all the ethnic groups, the major ethnic groups being Pashtuns, Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras, the majority being Pashtuns, 50% of them, agreed to stay together under the sovereignty of the king. Now this Misaq-e-Milli got torn and it was destroyed when the king was deposed. That glue which held them together was no more. That is what happened in 1979 when the king was deposed. Second point that I want to make, between 1979 and 89, when we were fighting a war against the Soviets, the free world wars, and Pakistan happened to be in the lead role, the elites of Afghanistan abandoned Afghanistan. They all came into the United States and Europe. So therefore the jihad, as they say in Afghanistan, was spearheaded by religious militant groups. And the elites were not there. So these are the 2 points that I want to make. Then I would like to highlight, after 1989, there were 3 blunders that were made. And I want to pinpoint each of these 3 because they are very important to understand what happened subsequently and now. Number 1, in 1989, having defeated the Soviet Union, as I said, the place was abandoned. Pakistan and Afghanistan was left alone. The worst part of this was, other than warlordism and the tribes in Afghanistan playing mayhem and ravaging the country, the Mujahideen, about 25 to 30,000 Mujahideen who we had brought into Afghanistan, when I say we, the West and Pakistan in the lead role, were all holed up there, armed to the teeth and knowing nothing other than fighting. They were holed up there, no resettlement, no rehabilitation of 25,000 fighters. They coalesced into Al-Qaeda. That is what happened between 89 and 2001 because the area was abandoned. First big blunder. Secondly, Taliban came into being in 1995-96. Pakistan was one of the 3 countries which recognized them, but the only country which opened a mission there. It was always reprimanded for doing that. So much so that in March 2000, when I was in charge, President Bill Clinton came and he asked me why we are dealing with the Taliban. And I always said that I propose a different strategy. We should all recognize the Taliban. And you should also recognize the Taliban and open your missions there so that we can manage them from within. I think that was the second blunder, that we did not do that. As a result of which, we pushed the Taliban to the wall against the wall, and we had no way of managing their attitudes, their responses. That was the second blunder, I think. The third blunder, which had very serious repercussions even now, was after 9/11. In 9/11, at 9/11, the opposing groups in Afghanistan was Taliban on one side, who were all Pashtuns. On the other side, they were opposed by Northern Alliance consisting of Uzbek, Tajik, Hazaras, the minorities. When United States the operation started in Afghanistan, Taliban were defeated with the assistance of Northern Alliance. Now, having done that, I always said there is a requirement of a change of strategy now. A policy change. Do not treat all Pashtuns to be Taliban. All Taliban, and I coined this term, all Taliban are Pashtuns, but all Pashtuns are not Taliban. Therefore, let's reach out, because they are the majority and they have, historically, it has always been the Pashtuns ruling Afghanistan. So we cannot ignore them, we cannot alienate them. Let's reach out to them. That was the third major blunder the repercussions of which even now we are facing. Because even now the Pashtuns have been alienated. And the government in Afghanistan is mainly dominated by Panjshiris, Tajiks. And Pashtuns are totally alienated. And therefore, for these 8 years, they have been pushed towards the Taliban. Now I would like to talk very briefly of the events following 9/11. Ladies and gentlemen, after 9/11, Al-Qaeda and Taliban were totally in disarray. They ran into the mountains and cities of Pakistan. We operated against them. And may I say that in the initial stages, it was the Al-Qaeda who were in the dominant role, Taliban having been totally dispersed. We acted against the Al-Qaeda very strongly in the cities of Pakistan and in the mountains in South Waziristan and North Waziristan especially. They went down. And they now exist in smaller numbers, much smaller numbers, whereas they used to be in hundreds in the past in the mountains. But gradually, while at that time the Taliban were dispersed, and as I said, we could have reached out to the Pashtuns and taken them on board, taken them and weaned them away from the Taliban, and had a legitimate government in Afghanistan, with the Pashtun majority have playing their role. That was not to be. And gradually, therefore, the Taliban started resurfacing. And there was a resurgence of Taliban from 2003 and 4 onwards. If you look back, the resurgence of that same destroyed Taliban started. And this started in Afghanistan with support from Pakistan. And more the alienation of the Pashtuns, more their linkages with the Pakistani Taliban in the tribal agencies of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And they started resurfacing. And this was a result, as I would like to repeat, was a result of the third blunder that we committed, of treating all Pashtuns as Taliban and as the enemy. When we talk of political approach, and now that we are going towards Taliban and trying to look at moderate Taliban, I would like to submit that now, while at that time we would have done the same thing from a position of strength, now we are doing it from a position of weakness. So I'd like to comment on this later. And in any case, I do not understand what is moderate Taliban and Taliban. I do understand there are Pashtuns who are not ideologically aligned with Taliban, and there are Taliban. Now, coming to the present, the situation has increased in its complexity, ladies and gentlemen. Again, encapsulating what I see as the situation in Afghanistan, the Taliban are ruling the roost, as they say, in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda is there in smaller numbers in our mountains in Pakistan, in South and in North Waziristan particularly. In Pakistan, we have 4 threats. A threat from Al-Qaeda, who, as I said, in smaller numbers, but they are there. Number 2, Taliban. The Pakistani Taliban, especially in South and North Waziristan and Bajaur agency. 3 of the 7 agencies, tribal agencies of Pakistan. Thirdly, Talibanization. I call this the third threat, which is spread of the Taliban thinking, their obscurantist views of Islam, trying to spread that into the settled districts of the frontier province. That is the third threat. And the fourth threat that Pakistan faces is extremism in our society, within certain areas of Pakistan, extremism spreading there. So this is the fourth threat that Pakistan has to confront. The other element that I see of the situation, the complexity, as I said, is the Mujahideen activity and involvement in Kashmir. The much maligned names of Lashkar-e-Tayyaba, Jaish Mohammed and Hizbul Mujahideen, LET, JM, HM, etc. You don't have to remember the names. But they are the ones who are rising again. And they are there because of non-settlement of the Kashmir dispute. Then, may I venture to say that in India, extremism within the Muslim youth is increasing. I know there are many Indians sitting here, but we must be prepared to face facts if we have to address them holistically. Otherwise, we'll leave one portion, and I will come to the implications later. There is extremism spreading in the Muslim youth because of their sense of alienation or whatever the reason it is spreading, and therefore organizations like SIMI, Students Islamic Movement of India, is gaining in strength. And we know what kind of activities have gone on in. All this, as I said, of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kashmir, India, the biggest issue is they are developing linkages. Extremism in India, Kashmir, Pakistan Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Afghan Taliban, they are developing linkages. So therefore the task involved is isolating them and dealing with them with full understanding. Now how to deal with them is the question. We always tend to talk of problems and we don't have solutions. We must have solutions. Firstly, we must win. Failure, quitting is not an option. And therefore, may I venture to add, in this August gathering, casualties have to be sustained. And when we talk of quitting, and a lot of people ask me, when should we quit? It cannot be time related. It is effect related. What effects do we want to create in Afghanistan, in the border areas of Pakistan and in Pakistan? And then only can we quit, whether it takes 1 year or 10 years. That is how I look at everything there. We must follow a three-pronged strategy, that is military, political, socio-economic. In Afghanistan, now what do we have to do in Afghanistan and Pakistan and India? Very briefly, I would be prepared to answer questions later. Effect in Afghanistan. We have to defeat Al-Qaeda. We have to dominate the Taliban. And we have to install a legitimate government in Afghanistan. I do understand it's easier said than done. But this is the basic effect that we ultimately want to create. We can do it, it is doable. But it is doable when we speak from strength, not from weakness. Not from a position where everyone says that we should quit and we should be leaving in 1 year, 1.5, 2 years, we should be quitting. We are playing into the hands of the enemy. We strengthen their views and resolve. We are showing lack of resolve and lack of commitment. As I said, we have to speak, go on the political track from a position of strength in Afghanistan. How do we achieve that strength? We have sent 30,000 more troops, American troops. Operation going on. Very good. But when we are talking of running away and going after 2 years and all that, well, it's very easy. I think the Taliban ought to be, if I was their commander, vacate all the places, don't offer any resistance, they are going to leave in 2 years. So, I think that's not the way to go around. We must show resolve and strength. We must increase strength and saturate the area with strength. How can we do that? I think there is a requirement, dire requirement of additional Afghan National Army, and we must be conscious of their ethnic orientation. We recruited about 70,000-80,000 army in Afghanistan. They are all Tajiks. How can we do such blunders? Majority in Afghanistan is Pashtun. So therefore, we must raise an Afghan National Army, increase the strength of Afghan National Army. But more than that, we ought to look at the Pashtun population and look at, it's a tribal structure there. I don't want to get involved in that. And Taliban is not a monolith. It's not one person commanding and controlling everything. They are different, they are divided into various groups. We need to look at the Pashtun population and see who within this tribal structure, which tribes do not have an ideological orientation with the Taliban. And historically, let me tell you, that the clerics in Afghanistan never enjoyed a position of authority in the tribal hierarchy in Afghanistan. So we need to identify those tribes, arm them, and create lashkars. And they are used to these lashkars, creating lashkars. And that will reinforce strength. But a word of warning, when we go there and do all this, we must give them the hope and strength that we are there to stay behind them and support them. Not that we will be leaving in 2 years and we'll leave you in the lurch. So therefore, while we are doing all this, creating Lashkars, Afghan National Army, we ought to be telling them that we are with you here to the end. We will create these effects and then only will we go. So that's the way to strengthen Afghanistan, I think. In Pakistan, whatever the army is doing very well. We need to continue operations in the tribal agencies and keep the pressure on against Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. We must have political deals. Unfortunately, back in 2003, after 9/11, when I was going on the political path of having deals with the Pashtuns, weaning them away from Taliban, all the misperceptions of I double crossing, double dealing with everyone in the West, whereas now they are doing exactly what I was doing in 2003. Deal with the saner element, Pashtun elements. And that is what has to be done to wean them away from the Taliban. So we have to go for deals, weaning away the saner elements of Pashtun from the Taliban, while the military pressure is on. And in that, with the military, we should have more frontier corps, give them more tanks and guns. I won't go into those details. Then in India, may I say that India must solve Kashmir. India must stop the Muslim alienation within itself. It knows the answers themselves. I'm not here to teach them that. But one thing which is very, very important, and that is they must stop interference in Pakistan through Afghanistan. And with all information and knowledge, I know that that is happening. So therefore, an Afghanistan which is allowing an influence of India to the detriment of Pakistan creates disharmony in the whole relationship, whole action against terrorism. This must stop. To conclude on terrorism and extremism, may I say that we must remember the implications of quitting. I've spoken of linkages in the region. But there is a bigger linkage now that we are hearing of a term called AQIM, AQIM, Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb, around Algeria and Mali, etc. We are talking of AQAP, AQAP, Al-Qaeda in Arab Peninsula, centered around Somalia and Yemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the center of gravity, and then we know what is happening in Uzbekistan. There is an ETIM, East Turkestan Islamic Movement in the western regions of China. Ladies and gentlemen, the center of gravity of all this is Afghanistan and the border regions of Pakistan. You want to defeat all of it? Defeat the center of gravity. That's what I've learned in military. And if you leave the center of gravity, you will lose everywhere. That is how I understand from the military point of view purely. So therefore, leaving the place is not an option. Let me come to Indo-Pakistan relations, and I'm going to be very brief. I would like any questions on that. Let me encapsulate. The relation between India and Pakistan have always, almost always, except a portion of my tenure, been tense, confrontationist, conspiratorial. ISI and RAW have always been opposing each other, doing a lot of damage to each other. I am not going into the history. So therefore, whatever has happened in the past, various incidents cannot be taken in isolation. It's a whole gambit of relationship between India and Pakistan and relationship between RAW and ISI. They've been confronting each other in their countries. I would leave it at that. This must stop. It must stop because of international concern that this is a nuclear flashpoint. It must stop because of regional concern that SAARC is impotent because of Indo-Pakistan confrontation. One of the SAARC leaders once told me that SAARC, when two elephants fight, the grass gets trampled. And at that time we were having a lot of rapprochement. And I said, if the two elephants start making love, the grass will be more trampled maybe. So that was the regional, so for the regional benefit of SAARC, we need to go for a rapprochement. Lastly, for our bilateral advantages, benefits, there is so much to gain, and there is so much that we are losing by this confrontation. So for the sake of the world, for the sake of the region, for the sake of bilateral gains, we must have peace between India and Pakistan. And I am a believer in that peace. I've been calling myself a man of war because yes, indeed, I am a soldier. And I have fought wars against India and actions against India. But I am a man for peace. I may be a man of war because I've seen the ravages of war like nobody else has seen. Therefore, I believe in peace. The three disputes involving India and Pakistan are Kashmir dispute, which is most difficult to solve. But we were close to solving even that with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. And may I compliment Prime Minister Manmohan Singh for his vision and for his flexibility, for his sincerity. The other two disputes are Siachen and Sir Creek. They can be resolved tomorrow. Because everything on Siachen has been done. We've had umpteen number of discussions and we know absolutely the solution is clear in everyone's mind. It needs a leadership decision. Sir Creek, the survey of Sir Creek and the area extending into the EEZ has all been done by the two navies together in my time. So therefore it needs a leadership decision to sign and agree to. So therefore we must resolve these three disputes. The easier ones could be done first, and then we could go on to the more difficult Kashmir. But the three qualities that is needed in the leadership on both sides, and I would like to share that with you. That's what my thought is. If you have to reach an agreement on anything, there are three qualities required in the leaders. Number one is sincerity. Being sincere to solving the problem, to reaching an agreement. Sincerity in your heart that you want to do it. Secondly is flexibility. Coming with an open mind, not coming with fixed ideas of your own solutions. In fact, leaving your stated positions and your own solutions aside and coming with an open mind to accept any new ideas from the other side. And lastly is the most important, boldness. Boldness is required because the solution, when you're talking of sincerity and flexibility, it implies that there will be a give and take. It cannot be a take and take. So when you're talking of give, that is where boldness is required. Because you have to sell that give part to your back in your country, and there will always be some elements, extremists, those who are against, who are going to agitate. Now the leader has to be bold enough that the majority will accept that solution and therefore be bold enough to face the agitation back in his country. That is the only way you can come up with solutions where there is a give and take involved. Otherwise you will never reach a solution. Pakistan nuclear, I think I'll skip it. If anyone wants to ask question, it is a nuclear flashpoint, and Pakistan and India are nuclear states. We became nuclear because we have an existential threat. That is what we think, and therefore we became nuclear. But how we are handling our nuclear potential, we have custodial controls, and if anyone asks a question, I'll answer. Last part is Pakistan-Afghanistan relations. They were bad in my time. They may be better now. But inside they are not good. They were bad because I thought, and I still believe, in 2003, 4, 5, Afghanistan was bluffing the world that the Taliban are in Pakistan. Taliban are all in Afghanistan, I used to say that. They have support from Pakistan. They were hiding in Pakistan. But the resurgence happened in Afghanistan with support from the Pakistan side. Pakistan Taliban gradually started when all the Pashtuns of Afghanistan kept getting alienated, as I said, of the third blunder. So Afghanistan was all the time portraying to the world that we have to get hold of Pakistan, everything is coming from there. No, it was not coming from there. It was within themselves that Taliban were rising. And that is what it is. The whole of South Afghanistan is under Taliban domination. Secondly, again, unfortunately, India-Pakistan relations. We ought not to be using Afghanistan as an area from where we can do harm to each other. Frankly, that is what is happening. And the West, the United States and Britain, everyone should be conscious of this, that Pakistan has a sensitivity. It cannot allow Pakistan's interests being hurt internally through Afghanistan by anyone. So this is an irritant. And it creates disharmony, as I said, in the operations against Taliban, the focused operation against Taliban and Al-Qaeda must be removed. that is all that I had to say. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the patient hearing.
Well, with many thanks for such punctuality. That was indeed half an hour. And so we do have half an hour for questions. And just a few points on that. If you could stand, actually, I think it's easier for the speaker to see who is asking a question. And if you could tell us your affiliation. And I think there's a roving microphone. Can I see where that is? There's the microphone there. So if you could wait for the microphone. And let's see, there's one right behind you. Yeah. Just there. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. My name is Anis Qadri. I am a member at Chatham House. General Musharraf, you alluded to this Kashmir's problem. Of course, it's a very difficult problem, and I know it because I am from Kashmir. Could you comment on the back channel that you were pursuing to solve this problem, and how far did it go? And it's a little unfortunate that you weren't able to finish it. Thank you.
Yes, I think the back channel operated extremely efficiently, and it was a great channel which was a direct link between me and the Prime Minister, and therefore we could move much faster. Well, through that we arrived at parameters the parameters were very clear that we need to demilitarize, graduated demilitarization. We need to give maximum self-governance to the people of Kashmir, and then we need to have an overarching mechanism of monitoring that self-governance, and also that we need to make the line of control irrelevant. Well, these were the parameters that was proposed by me, and I think we were following these parameters reasonably well.
There's one just behind you, right at the back there.
My name is Leighton Van Noor, a member of Chatham House. General, I have a historical question about the internal affairs of your country. It seems to me, as an outside observer, that ever since independence, the military governments of your country, including your own, have been far more effective than the civilian governments over the same period. Would you agree with that? And if so, why is that?
Well, as a military man, I'll immediately agree with that. But having said that, why is that so? I personally feel that democratically elected governments somehow have been failing to perform. The ultimate objective of any government, of any state, is good governance. And when I talk of good governance, it means the development, progress and development of the state, welfare, well-being of its people. That has to be achieved. Now, if that is not being achieved, whether it is democracy or dictatorship, it is immaterial. That has to be the end objective. And unfortunately, the democratic governments failed to achieve all this. And while the military government, maybe because of their better organizational capability or their better trained mind of doing things in an organized or their better administration capabilities, they performed better, yes. But I think the nation should learn, I am very clear in my mind, that the answer is not at all that the military ought to be governing. We have to have the civil government performing. There is no doubt in my mind that is the way forward. And I personally feel it can be achieved if there is a unity in thought and action between political forces, the army and the bureaucracy in Pakistan. And unfortunately, maybe it is these three who have not been having unity of thought and action in the past and even now. So therefore, we need to have governments democratically elected, certainly. I am for that, and absolutely that is the way forward. Otherwise, we'll keep oscillating like that. Civil government, military government, up and down always. It's high time that we have civil governments who are oriented towards delivering on the governance in Pakistan, and I've defined governance to be the progress and development of the state, welfare, well-being of its people, and that can be done when they have unity in thought and action within themselves, the political forces, the army, and the bureaucracy.
There's one question here. Yeah.
I'm Tom Fenton, an American journalist and member of Chatham House. General, 5 or 6 years ago, I asked you at a World Economic Forum meeting how confident you were that your country's nuclear weapons could not fall into the wrong hands. Are you still as confident as you appeared to be then?
Yes, indeed, sir. I'm as confident even now.
And why?
And why? Yes. I was going to include that myself. We instituted custodial controls. And the custodial controls, which were not there before 2000. It was I who did that. Now, and I'm very proud of that. We brought them under control. And the control was in two elements. Number one is the production. The other is holding of the assets. The production. So therefore we constituted a body called National Command Authority, right at the top, with the President in the chair and relevant ministers and the military top hierarchy. We developed a secretariat called the SPD, Strategic Planning Division, a huge secretariat under a 3-star general. The main issue here was to centralize or to take over the security and the finances of the developers. We've done that. So therefore the security and the finances, the audit, the external audit, it's all very well organized under that SPD. And therefore the organization, the producers, do not have that authority which they had in the past, and therefore proliferation was possible. Now it is no more there. Thirdly, now holding of those assets. We created a force called ASFC, Army Strategic Force Command. This force is a corps-sized force, corps of the army, with 2 divisions, each division having about 3 brigades, each brigade having 2 to 3 regiments, missile regiments. It's very well organized. They hold the assets, and they don't hold them in places which can be attacked by anyone. They are in places which cannot be attacked and which can be very ideally defended, and take my word that they cannot be attacked. So therefore, with force and with positions. So therefore I believe now the only way that they can fall in any terrorist hands, if a religious extremist organization is voted to power in Pakistan and takes over the government of Pakistan. I don't think that is possible. In the last elections, I think the religious groups only had 2 or 3% of the seats. So the people of Pakistan won't vote them in. So therefore, when the groups of terrorists in smaller groups cannot attack them and physically capture them, or damage them or take them over, and the whole government cannot fall to the extremists, I think they are secure.
Question there.
May I take that?
Yes, sir.
Mohammed Waziri from Persian Service, BBC World Service. My question is, the best part of your speech, actually a great portion of it was on, as you call it, the center of gravity, Afghanistan. But is it not just simplistic to ignore the problems in the tribal areas, the traditions, and the sort of underdevelopment which has been going there? And besides, some of the extremism that has been actually brewing there has been there for a long time, including Tahrik Nafaz Shariat Muhammadi. What Pakistan has done, or perhaps you have done, to control those elements there and extremism in your country, not necessarily Afghanistan?
Yes, I certainly agree that the center of gravity is Afghanistan and the tribal regions of Pakistan, the tribal agencies of Pakistan. But that doesn't mean that there is nothing happening. I have myself said that there is extremism in the society in Pakistan, which needs to be curbed. But then Well, how is okay, now that you are asking a question, we were implementing a 5-point strategy. Number one, control the misuse of mosques by clerics, some of the mosques. Number two, control publication of hate material, religious and sectarian. Number three, ban extremist organizations and make sure that they don't come up by other names. Number four is check or improve the syllabus in the education institutions, which may be promoting sectarian or religious hatred in some form. And lastly, a madrasa strategy, mainstream the madrasa students. I mean, this is the briefest form of reply that I can give you. That was extremism in our society. But however, I also named India. There is something happening in India also. And there is happening in Kashmir also. There is happening in Uzbekistan and ETIM in China also. There is happening in Yemen also, in Somalia also. So I've given the whole complexity of the problem. Everywhere we have to address that. But I said that the center of gravity, the core, lies in where the operations are going on and the tribal agencies of Pakistan. We have to win here to defeat all the others. That's what I said.
Yeah, there's a question you've been waiting from the start. Yeah.
Thank you very much. David Brem, Chatham House member. Mr. President, thank you very, very much for your candor in your speech. I want to ask you about nuclear disarmament. President Obama and President Medvedev have been talking about decreasing their nuclear arsenals over the coming months and years of their presidencies. What will it take for India and Pakistan to come to those similar conclusions that nuclear arsenals have to be decreased in the long run for the good of humanity?
Yeah, I would say that it has to be a mutual reduction, and India and Pakistan mutually should decide on reduction and making South Asia a nuclear-free zone. In fact, I always said, let's have a no-war pact between India and Pakistan. So therefore, yes indeed, we must, but we must also understand, now that you've asked this question, why did Pakistan go nuclear? Pakistan has an existential threat, as I said. If India did not go nuclear, Pakistan would never have gone nuclear. So if India is to possess nuclear weapons, Pakistan will possess nuclear weapons. If India is to have missiles, Pakistan will have missiles. That is the demand of the people of Pakistan and demand of every man in the street. It is the pride of Pakistan. So therefore, anyone who talks against the nuclear potential of Pakistan, with ignoring and leaving India to be nuclear, is talking against the national interest of Pakistan, is insensitive to Pakistan's concerns and interests. And it goes against our will, against the will of the people of Pakistan. And the West must understand this. So if you want to create peace there, peace cannot be when one part from where we are having an existential threat is all armed to the teeth, is nuclear, and we should go denuclearize. That is not a possibility.
Yep, this question now.
Yeah, I'm Samir Nassif, and I'm a member of Chatham House. My question to you, President, is do you accept that military expeditions where civilians are killed by mistake, like collateral, as what is happening, could really reach hearts and minds in Afghanistan or in Pakistan? And how would you have handled it differently? And as President, you were very much involved in the Middle Eastern issues. Do you think now, because of the Afghanistan and the Pakistan problems, the leaders of Pakistan are no longer the leaders of the Muslim world in the Middle East because they are involved in these wars?
Thank you. Yes, casualties, civil casualties which have occurred now, certainly they must not happen. They have a very, very negative impact. Already the sensitivities, as I said, of Pashtuns are very high. They think that they've been alienated. They feel that they've been ignored. They feel that they are being subjected to all kinds of pressures and military actions. So all this is there. Now, over and above, if they are to suffer casualties of collateral damage, certainly it has a negative effect. How will I handle it? Well, I should not have those casualties. That is how I will handle it. I don't know but should not. We must be very, very careful on that. It's very unfortunate that there were these casualties now. On my brief answer to, yes, I was involved in, because I thought in the Middle East, because I believe in getting to root causes. I personally believe that when we are talking of military action, we are not going into the root of the problems. The root of the problem lies far deeper. It's in political disputes. And in the political disputes, the heart of the problem is Palestinian dispute. That is from where everything started. And therefore, we need to resolve that, and that is where I got involved in trying to come out with a fresh approach towards the resolution of the Palestinian dispute, which to my mind, it needed a fresh approach. And that is what I was trying. As far as the leadership now is concerned, well, leadership can only contribute when they have a standing in the world and in the world, yes. Well, I don't know, you know better than me which leader has the standing in the world, and if he has, he should go ahead and try to solve the problem.
Farzana Sheikh, Associate Fellow here at Chatham House. General Musharraf, as you know, India and Pakistan are going to be holding talks, Foreign Secretary level talks on the 25th of this month. We've had General Kiani speak to NATO commanders in Brussels a couple of weeks ago, in which he made it very clear that Pakistan's policy remains firmly India-centric. In other words, India remains the main threat, that Pakistan's troops, the majority of them, will remain massed on Pakistan's eastern borders. Last week, we heard President Zardari say very clearly that militancy poses the main threat to Pakistan, and that these talks with India are designed to bring India on board so that Pakistan can combat its main enemy, militancy. Do you think India has a point when it says that dialogue with Pakistan is extremely difficult because it is unclear who actually calls the shots in Pakistan?
Thank you. I think the person who talks more sense calls the shots. Of course, the government must call the shots. I wouldn't like to get involved in that answer, but to the first part of your question, it's very important. This is a question that has been asked when I was in the United States at so many places. Who is the main enemy, main threat? India or Taliban or extremism and terrorism? At this moment, the threat is terrorism and extremism. But that doesn't mean that we only have one threat, and therefore everything is to be looked there. Threats don't change from 100 to 0 and then back to 100. There is a threat on the eastern border. And if I was to quantify that threat for the information of this August gathering, India has about 33 infantry divisions. 25 of them are massed against Pakistan border, oriented towards Pakistan border. They have, in offensive, they have 3 armored divisions. All 3 are oriented against Pakistan borders. They have 3 mechanized divisions. All 3 oriented against Pakistan borders. Their air force, 80% or if not more, with forward air bases. Forward air bases are the ones from where they launch offensives. All oriented Pakistan border. You tell me, if I am the military commander, what do I do? Terrorism is also there, but this force is also there. So please understand. Obviously, I am not going to let my guard down on the eastern border, yet fight terrorism and extremism. So I will have to dispose my resources according to the present situation. Present situation happens to be terrorism, extremism is the main threat. But I will never ignore the eastern border. Till you tell Indians to take their forces off, reduce their forces, then yes.
Okay, I've been trying to facilitate you guys taking the pictures. Are you done, pretty much? Because it seems like you are. And if you could be back a bit, that'd be great. We've got a question there.
President Musharraf, Bénédicte Pavio, France 24. This vision, this analysis you've shared with us today about the centre of gravity, about the blunders, when they happened, how they happened, historical, political, socio-economic, is this clarity of vision, has this been served well since you've been out of power? Have things become clearer? And do you hope to play a major role again in Pakistan politics in the future?
Well, this is my vision. This is what I think. This is what I think the truth is. And I personally believe that the world is facing such a crisis which cannot be addressed unless the environment is understood with clarity. We must understand the environment with full clarity. Then only can we have a plan of action which will succeed. But if your understanding of the environment is defective, your plan will fail. Therefore, I am very keen, and I've described whatever I thought is correct. Now, playing a role, it's not for me alone. I am certainly, I love my country, and I would like to do anything for Pakistan. And I took an oath when I passed out from the military academy that, and the oath was that I will go by land, air, or sea, wherever ordered, even to the peril of my life. And that oath remains. So therefore, for Pakistan, one would be prepared to do anything. However, it is for the people of Pakistan who need to decide who is to, because I'm a civilian now, I'm not a military man, I cannot take over or anything. So, if at all, even if I think Pakistan, even if I think something wrong is happening in Pakistan, so I have to come through the political process, through the process of election. But I think it's very good. It's very good because I think I will have that legitimacy which I never had. Maybe this now, if one was to come, it's with that legitimacy of the political process, with the political strength of the people of Pakistan. And then if one unites the army and the bureaucracy is the issue, which the question I leave to the people of Pakistan.
Sounds like a yes.
I'm Sundar, I'm from University College London. My question to you, General, is you listed homegrown extremism and terrorism as the major threat facing Pakistan. But why is the Pakistan security...
Can you speak a little louder, please?
Yeah. You listed homegrown extremism and terrorism as the major threat facing Pakistan today. But why is still the Pakistani security force reluctant to take action against Punjabi-based extremist groups like Jamaat-ud-Dawa and Hafiz Saeed is still moving free in Lahore?
Okay, just in case people didn't get that, the question was, why is the Pakistani state not taking action against some of these Punjabi-based militant groups, some of which you mentioned in quite positive terms?
Yes. Please understand that we've had developments since 79. 1979 to 89, we fought a war, a jihad in Afghanistan. We called it a jihad, all of us, you, United States, Pakistan, and we brought Mujahideen, and we trained Taliban, and armed them and sent them in. They were our heroes, the Mujahideen and the Taliban. Then 89 to 2001 is the critical period where we were abandoned. In these 12 years, Kashmir war started, freedom struggle, and we were alone. And there was mayhem in Afghanistan, and Pakistan was alone to fend for its own, to save its own interests. to project its own interests in a country like Afghanistan, which was being ravaged by tribal forces which were pulling in different directions. Pakistan had to fend for itself, left all alone. In fact, sanctions imposed on it in 90s, the Pressler Amendment and all that. Now within this element, Kashmir freedom struggle starts. India poses a threat also. There was a confrontation with India in my time between 2001 and 2 that all the Indian military was massed against the borders for 10 months. We were near war, where my friend General Colin Powell was ringing me up every day to cool my tempers. We were near war. So all this was happening, and in these 12 years when we were all alone, dozens of Mujahideen groups came into being in Pakistan, because the people of Pakistan had tremendous sympathy with what was happening in Kashmir. Now these dozens of Mujahideen groups, in the 90s when we were all alone, we had our own strategy. What should we do with India, who may be prepared to attack us or fight with us, or Kashmir is boiling? So what do we do? So it had its own way of, the public sympathy was there, and these Mujahideen groups in Pakistan grew to support their Kashmiri brethren. So now after 20 years almost, we suddenly want to say, okay, clamp down and finish all of them. It has to be done in a very deliberate manner, because there is certain potential of harm to Pakistan. So therefore one has to be very deliberate. While we must not encourage extremism and terrorism by them, but those groups now have public sympathy also. So therefore I was saying India must resolve this Kashmir dispute. Because when they have this public sympathy, now cracking down on them, these are issues which, please let the government of Pakistan handle them. And that is what I used to say always, let me handle them. And we were doing a lot to handle them. It's a difficult situation. Whereas I said, dozens of Mujahideen groups who were active and activated and going into Kashmir and fighting with their Kashmiri brothers and sisters, protecting them. So resolution of the dispute is the core. And that is why I was going, and that is what I told Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Let's resolve the dispute and remove the core issue, and then go after telling all these chaps, okay boys, relax, everything is over.
Okay.
We've solved the problem.
If someone's still got their phone on, which we've only got a few minutes left, but if you could just check, because it's interfering with the sound system. And so we've only got 2 or 3 minutes. I think what we'll do is just take 2 or 3 questions for you to wrap up on, if that's all right. So one over there.
Bernard Herman, a member of Chatham House. Would you like to say something about the demographic issues facing Pakistan? How much foreign investment will you need within the next few years in order to offset the notorious linkage between political extremism and the large-scale youth unemployment?
There's one further at the back, right at the back there. Yeah. Yep.
The answer. You want to
just in a group.
Okay.
Jennifer Glass from Voice of America. I'm wondering if you're encouraged by General McChrystal's new stand in Afghanistan, and you talked about the importance of staying. With Canada and the Netherlands already setting dates for withdrawal in Afghanistan, what kind of leverage do you have over NATO nations to remain in the country?
And did you end up taking the microphone off somebody down there, in which case better restore it? Yeah.
Ronan Donoghue, Institute member. I'm just wondering if you see any role for negotiated settlement in the tribal regions, given that there is an argument that the collateral damage is so great on the attacks that it's causing people to defect to the Taliban that otherwise would not be ideologically aligned to them, and therefore it's backfiring the plan. So I'm just wondering if you think a negotiated settlement might work.
Okay, the last one is just over there. Yep.
Hi, Gordon Glass, member of Chatham House. Can you give me some indication of the feelings in Pakistan about the US drones attack within Pakistan? It seems as though there's sort of double thinking and actions going on there.
Okay, well let's deal with those. We can group two of those together anyway. Which, I mean, you did talk a bit about negotiation in the tribal areas and with the Pashtuns, and also the other side of it, the drone attacks and so on. I mean, how do you see that balance?
First of all, I have clarified in my speech that right from 2003 onwards, there was a need of going on the political path, military, political, socio-economic. The political path, you must differentiate between what is the political path in Afghanistan and with the political path in Pakistan. The political path in Afghanistan is strategic in concept, because you have to include the Pashtuns into governance in Afghanistan. They have to be a part of governance at the highest level in Afghanistan. On the Pakistan side, there is no such thing. So the political path on the Pakistan side is very, very tactical. In other words, we are dealing with the tribes in the tribal agencies of Pakistan to wean them away from the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. That is what we were doing. Now, what were the deals about? Yes, indeed, back in 2004 or 5, Naseem, I don't remember when we were Saftar Wali Sheikh, but I think it was 2004 or 5 or something. That backfired. But however, there were other deals which were very positive. And through our own going forward and analyzing everything, we realized that there ought to be 4 ingredients in any deal with any tribe. Number 1, no Al-Qaeda in your area. Number 2, no Taliban, cross-border Taliban activity. Number 3, a punishment for any defaulter. And number 4, a methodology of enforcing the punishment. These 4 elements we decided must form a part of every deal. And this is what we were doing. This is good. But however, I always warned everyone, please don't think that there will be 100% honesty about it. There may be people who will maybe double-crossing us. Doesn't matter. We must go for the deals, because we will wean away some of them. And some parts may still double-cross. So this was the methodology that we followed, and we ought to follow even now. And on the political side, it was the blunder, the third blunder that I spoke of, and therefore we did not follow a political path even till now. So therefore, this is my belief on the political side. Is that...
That's right. And then there was a question about the McChrystal strategy and the demographics.
Demographics of what?
Well, you're talking about Pakistan's population.
Yeah. No, what was General McChrystal's strategy?
What is your view of the surge, I guess? The current operation?
Yes. I mean, I am a believer that we have to speak from a position of strength. There is no doubt in my mind. And in fact, there is more strength required, and I think that it should be the Afghan National Army and it should be Lashkars of Afghanistan created, so that we wean away population. When we create some Afghan national, we are giving jobs. These people need jobs. Pumping in money, etc. is very, very important. Now coming to the demographics of Pakistan, it's a very a question which needs a very long answer. The core issue in the long-term strategy against terrorism and extremism, I would say now, extremism which spawns terrorism, is really poverty alleviation and education, these 2 elements. So in Pakistan, we must ensure that the economy of Pakistan ought to be doing well, because that is the core towards any human development. And having done that, we need to ensure that the people of Pakistan, the welfare of the people and the human development takes place. And the human development is poverty alleviation, employment generation, education and health. That needs finances. And finances are required now. How much? Sky is the limit. Much lesser than the trillions of dollars required to bail out the firms, the banks, etc. in the world.
There we are. Thank you very much, General Musharraf, for that talk.